Sucker is the only fool. Whoa. Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Aiken. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning, and I can't thank you enough for joining me this morning. We have a lot to cover. Obviously, the big Supreme Court decision yesterday, the talk of the town, a lot of fear-mongering in the media. We're going to talk about that. We also have a lot about the debate fallout, of course. I do have a couple of, interesting but oddball stories to begin with before we jump right into the deep end. Now, when you look at your finances, we talk about inflation and the pain it causes to go to the grocery store. How much do you think you would need to make a year to really feel financially secure? It's a fair question. There's a new survey from Bankrate that found out that magic number. This coming from CBS News. Let me think to yourself if you agree with this number. Americans have a specific annual income in mind for what it would take to feel financially secure. That number, $186,000 a year. Currently, only 6% of U.S. adults make that amount or more. The median family income falls between $51,500 and $86,000, according to the latest federal data. That's a big stretch. So thought I'd start your morning off with a goal to focus on making $186,000 per year to feel financially secure. Speaking of financially secure, we have complained, maybe that's not the right word, we have talked a lot with Assemblyman Phil Palmisano, Tom O'Mara, Chris Friend, and what comes up on a pretty consistent basis is taxpayer-funded campaigns. If you're not overly familiar with them in New York, we've discussed them enough that I don't think I have to get into the weeds too much with it. But essentially, you, the taxpayer, are paying for the campaign. You're matching donations to a candidate that you maybe don't even support, that you would be radically opposed to for their beliefs. Does not matter. Your tax dollars wisely being spent here in New York by giving it to potential politicians, to candidates. Now, I know what you're saying. Boy, there seems like a lot. Well, there's better ways to spend money in New York, but also, hey, maybe just let us keep our money. How about that? Well, there's a campaign by a gentleman named Deo Yin, a Democrat candidate for state assembly. We mentioned him a few days ago because we knew this system would be corrupt. He submitted fake donations and forged signatures to obtain much of his matching funds. But just to give you an idea of Deo Yin trying to game the system and what this system is in New York, he got $162,000 in taxpayer money, almost enough to feel financially secure. $162,000 of your money. And you know how much of the vote he received? 6% of the vote. We knew this system would be misused. That's why we talked about it perhaps too much. But New York State went to unusual lengths to give a long shot candidate for a state assembly seat in Queens more than $162,000 in taxpayer money for his campaign, even though the paperwork he submitted to regulators lacked information their handbook called for. The candidate, Deo Yin, was trounced in the Democratic primary last week, pulling in less than 6% of the vote. The New York Times revealed right before the primary that Yin's campaign had submitted fake donations and forged signatures to obtain much of the money. On Thursday, the state's Public Campaign Finance Board voted unanimously to adopt an emergency resolution meant to tighten its rules and prevent future abuses. So does that mean they can go back after him? Now, under the state's new matching funds program, largely modeled on the one that New York City created almost 40 years ago. Always a good idea if you want to root out corruption to look at what New York City is doing, as I say very sarcastically. Candidates can receive taxpayer money to finance their campaigns by submitting proof that they have received small donations from supporters in their district. Yin reported raising $27,000 from 299 people, with 80% of the individual donations listed as cash, the least traceable form of contribution. No candidate receiving matching funds from the state this year relied more on cash, strangely enough, than yin. The state's matching fund system is more generous than the long-established one in the city, which helps to explain why Yin's campaign received such a large amount despite taking in relatively little money. Listen to this. This is why I bring it up. State candidates in competitive races can get as much as $12 in public financing for every dollar and a donation of $5 to $250. That's your money. I know it says state will give you public financing. That's your tax dollars hard at work. Now, this was intended to reduce the influence of big money in Albany by rewarding candidates who rely on small contributions, as Yin claimed that he had. But the Times found that some of the donor cards Yin submitted to the state carried forged signatures, and at least 26 people who were listed as donors said they did not contribute to Yin's campaign. All right, enough on that. To start your morning off, the successful works of Albany. All right, so the Supreme Court has affirmed absolute immunity for official acts in the Trump case. Now, this means that the January 6th trial will unlikely happen before, it's unlikely, it's not a guarantee, but unlikely happen before the election. So when you tie this in, and there's a viewer that asked this yesterday, you tie in this Supreme Court decision so they realize that the lawfare is becoming less likely to bring down the former president as they had hoped. You've got Biden's dismal debate performance last week with the people in his own party calling for him to step aside. What, and here's a question I'm posing to you this morning. What do you now think will be Judge Merchan's decision on July 11th? I think it changes the whole playing field. One time we had talked about it. I kind of was leaning towards home confinement because the judge could say, well, see, I wasn't biased. I didn't send the former president to prison. I took it easy on him for his 34 felony counts, so I sent him home. Therefore, as you know, taking him off the campaign trail. Because with the gag order, that's clear that that was one of their ultimate goals, is to silence the former president. But now the dynamics have changed so much. What do you think Judge Merchan's decision will be on July 11th? Does this make him, because we've seen the bias, does this make him decide maybe it is prison time? Because the convicted felon label isn't doing the trick that they thought it would. So will those images from prison maybe make the difference in their mind that it's worth it? Because let's face it, if it works, Merchan will just have a cushy job. He'll get an amazing job after this. Who knows? Maybe he'll be on the Supreme Court when they start to stack it. Which there's a lot of talks from the left about what to do about the Supreme Court. But they ruled Monday that former President Donald Trump enjoys absolute immunity from prosecution for official acts during his presidency. I would add that's not just Trump, as John Roberts said, I'm paraphrasing, but this isn't about party. It isn't about who the individual is. The nation's top court left it up to lower courts to sort out what constitutes an official act by a sitting president, clearing the way for more appeals by Trump that could set his trial on charges he unlawfully tried to remain in power back for months, maybe even years, if it even happens at all. In a 6-3 majority decision authored by Chief Justice John Roberts, the court stressed that the president is not above the law and that not everything the president does is official. Like everyone else, the president is subject to prosecution in his unofficial capacity. But unlike anyone else, the president is a branch of government, and the Constitution vests in him sweeping powers and duties. Now, do you agree with this decision? I mean, you can see where it's concerning depending on who's in there, but it makes sense in the long term, as the former president's saying, you have decisions that you make as president that a typical person doesn't have to make that could be deemed by some to be unlawful. You know, you look at Obama with the drone strikes, for instance. So what were your thoughts on this? This was a 6-3 decision. We're going to tell you what many are saying. I know Sonia Sotomayor may be becoming the new Ruth Bader Ginsburg. What I mean by that is, remember how Ruth Bader Ginsburg became such almost like a pop culture star? and not on the Supreme Court as much, but Elizabeth Warren tried doing the same with, nevertheless, she persisted. They are clinging to Sonia Sotomayor's words on the left in a way that shows that she may be the new star. Our Constitution does not shield a former president from answering for criminal and treasonous acts, Sotomayor wrote. Never in the history of our republic has a president had reason to believe that he would be immune from criminal prosecution if he used the trappings of his office to violate the criminal law. With fear for our democracy. Sounds like a political ad for the Biden administration. With fear for our democracy, I dissent. Jackson penned a separate dissent in which she criticized Roberts, saying, quote, the official versus unofficial act distinction also seems both arbitrary and irrational, for it suggests that the unofficial criminal acts of a president are the only ones worthy of prosecution. Quite to the contrary, it is when the president commits crimes using his unparalleled official powers that the risks of abuse and autocracy will be most dire. So there's a lot of talking heads out this morning and what they're saying about this. I know the president gave a primetime address last night. We'll talk a little bit about that as well. That's when we come back. I see some comments coming in. I see some waves coming in. Thank you for that. We'll try to get to as many of your comments as we possibly can. We also do have a lot more about the debate fallout. I'm going to see how much we can get to this morning. Hopefully, most of this stack of papers that I have in front of me. So stay with us. Break number one. Boy, we're just hitting the ground running, aren't we? Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking.
Isn't your wellness important? Don't you want more energy? Now's the best time to make every day better and relieve those achy muscles and pains than with a Hesselson's Hot Tub. Hesselson's has hot tubs in stock and available for immediate delivery with unbelievable savings. Hesselson's offers 0% interest-free financing for up to 5 full years. Hesselson's carries the only hot tub brand in the industry with the exclusive freshwater salt system that is eco-friendly and easy to use and only enhances your hot tubbing experience. Come in today and see why your next hot tub should be a Hesselson's Hot Tub. And remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Motorcycle riding season is in full swing, and there are more motorcycles on the road than ever before. Crashes involving motorcycles are often the result of a motorist failing to yield the right-of-way, or caused by a motorist who is distracted. And motorcycle riders are vulnerable and more exposed. So for them, crashes can result in serious injury or even death. Drivers and riders, we're all in this together. Please, be smart and pay attention to your driving. Share the road and watch for motorcycles.
You can tear your old statements and bills, but thieves use this information to steal your identity. Don't be a victim. Get the ID Police, the new ink roller that encrypts all your old documents. So before you throw it out, just roll it on, and your information is gone, both on the front and through the back. Even if the paper is held up to the light, even your medical information is safe with the ID Police. So block it out before you throw it out. Order now and get your ID Police for as low as $9.99 and get free shipping too. This offer is not available on Amazon, so call or click now to get your ID Police for as low as $9.99 with free shipping. Order now.
Call 1-800-898-1002. That's 1-800-898-1002 or visit getidpolice.com. So call 1-800-898-1002. Order now.
Our beautiful view of historic Market Street as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. If you're new to the program, you see that number on the bottom of the screen. Feel free to weigh in at any time on the topics. The best way to do so is a text message, but you can leave a voicemail as well, and you'll see our wave counter there. Feel free to send in a wave emoji. Okay, comment from a viewer. Biden said in remarks following the U.S. Supreme Court's ruling that granted broad immunity to Trump and other presidents from prosecution that the public had a, quote, right to know about Trump's role in the January 6, 2021 insurrection. Nothing to help America but lock up Trump. Constitution gone, fear of freedom of speech gone. You face prison if you speak. Thank you very much for your comments. CNN put together their takeaways from this decision. Trump got a bigger win than expected. For starters, the Supreme Court ruled that for core presidential activity, Trump has the absolute immunity he has sought. The majority said that Trump's conversations with the Justice Department, his efforts to try to get officials on board with his effort to overturn the election, were covered with absolute immunity. For other official actions and more routine powers held by the president, the court said there is at least some immunity, and it largely deferred to lower courts to sort that out. Now, that's the process that could take so long, why many are speculating that this, and it seems unlikely, that the case will come up before the election, if ever. The analysis about what's immune and what isn't, quote, ultimately is best left to the lower courts to perform, Roberts wrote. Perhaps even more important, the majority made clear that the official acts cannot be considered at all as evidence in a potential trial, which could make it much harder for Smith to prevail. Roberts also wrote that the lower courts may not consider a former president's motive, which may allow Trump's attorneys to argue that he wasn't attempting to overturn an election in his favor at all. Now, again, they say essentially unlikely there'll be a significant delay in that trial. Now, liberals tear into a majority for creating, quote, a king above the law. The court's 3 liberal justices pulled no punches with 2 written dissents, as I mentioned earlier in the program. Justice Sonia Sotomayor wrote that in every use of official power, the president is now a king above the law. Joined in full by the court's 2 other liberal members, Sotomayor, the court's senior liberal, wrote that the majority was relying on misguided wisdom to give Trump all the immunity he has asked for and more. Trump's nominee, Barrett, pushes for a swift trial and a significant break from the court's other conservatives. Barrett seemed to suggest Trump should go to trial quickly. I would have framed the underlying legal issues differently, Barrett said. She suggested that because Trump's wholesale challenge to the indictment had failed, at least some of the case could go forward. Justice Thomas questions the constitutionality of Smith and his appointment. Thomas said, and there are serious questions whether the Attorney General has violated that structure by creating an office of the special counsel that has not been established by law. Those questions must be answered before this prosecution can proceed. The lower courts should thus answer these essential questions concerning the special counsel's appointment before proceeding. Now, one loss for Trump, that impeachment isn't a legal shield. Addressing Trump's claim, Roberts wrote that a president who evades impeachment for one reason or another, such as by resigning from office, would never be held accountable for his criminal acts. Impeachment is a political process by which Congress can remove a president. Transforming that political process into a necessary step in the enforcement of criminal law finds little support in the text of the Constitution or the structure of our government. Okay. Trump wrote on social media yesterday that was brilliantly written and wise. The Supreme Court decision is a much more powerful one than some had expected it to be. Trump called it a big win for our Constitution and for our democracy. Biden principal deputy campaign manager Quentin Fulks is in a conference call with reporters charged that this decision will give Donald Trump cover to do exactly what he's been saying he wants to do for months, which is enact revenge and retribution against his political enemies. Isn't that interesting when you think about the fact that Trump has had to go to so many court cases because of this lawfare, but yet they keep pushing this idea that he is going to seek retribution. Anyway. A major question going forward is what kind of impact the Supreme Court ruling will have on the Biden-Trump rematch with just over 4 months to go before the election. Now, in his address on Monday night, President Biden said the American people must decide if Trump's embrace of violence to preserve his power is acceptable. So he's hoping, Biden, to kind of erase those thoughts of what happened at the debate by being tough and pushing the January 6th narrative that we know is going to be a centerpiece of their campaign and has been so far. But I'll continue with what Biden had to say. Perhaps most importantly, the American people must decide if they want to entrust the presidency to Donald Trump once again. now knowing he'll be even more emboldened to do whatever he pleases whenever he wants to do it. Longtime Democratic strategist and presidential campaign veteran Maria Cardona said the ruling is a shot in the arm to voters who care about our democracy, our Constitution, and the rule of law. It is a shot in the arm for them to work their butts off to elect President Biden because the Supreme Court ruling was a victory for one person, Donald Trump, and it was a huge loss for the country and for our democracy. Democrat strategist Joe Cazazzo said the stakes of the election continue to grow as this activist court has attacked reproductive rights, environmental protection, and now the integrity of the ability to hold elected officials accountable for their actions. Voters will remember this in November. Longtime Republican consultant Ryan Williams said the general consensus was that the more serious charges were in the federal cases, and by moving them to after the election, they were removed as a distraction during the campaign. Trump can now continue to campaign and focus on the election rather than preparing for trial prior to Election Day. That's a win for him. Mother Jones, of course, a far-left publication, highlighting Sonia Sotomayor's dissent. The president is now a king. The most blistering lines from dissents in the Trump immunity case. What if he orders the Navy SEALs Team 6 to assassinate a political rival? Immune? This is what Sonia Sotomayor said specifically. The president of the United States is the most powerful person in the country and possibly the world. When he uses his official powers in any way under the majority's reasoning, he now will be insulated from criminal prosecution. Orders the Navy SEALs Team 6 to assassinate a political rival? Immune. Organizes a military dissenting coup to hold on to power? Immune. Takes a bribe in exchange for a pardon? Immune, immune, immune. Let the president violate the law. Let him exploit the trappings of his office for personal gain. Let him use his official powers for evil ends, because if he knew that he may one day face liability for breaking the law, he might not be as bold and fearless as we would like him to be. That is the majority's message today. And of course, they go through the hypotheticals. Jackson saying even a hypothetical president who admits to have ordered the assassination of his political rivals or critics, or one who indisputably instigates an unsuccessful coup, has a fair shot at getting immunity under the majority's new presidential accountability model. Okay. Chuck Schumer, our senator, before we go to break, said it is disgraceful. I have a feeling, if we haven't seen it already, that we will. If you recall a while ago, I think it was after Roe, but it might have even been before that, the overturning of Roe v. Wade, they started calling for kind of the stacking of the deck, adding more justices, as FDR attempted to do. That was a common talking point for quite some time. So will those calls be renewed? What will this mean if Biden gets a second term? What they will do to the Supreme Court? That's the question. I'll pose that question to you as well. But we got to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking.
My entire practice is focused and centered around St. James Hospital in Hornell. We see a lot of joint pain from hips, shoulders, and knees, whether you're a weekend warrior or even a 80 to 90-year-old who just wants to stay active and keep walking a couple blocks in their neighborhood. I want to spend the time to connect, to really hear you and understand why you've come to visit me to seek treatment. It drives me to be the best physician I can be so that you can go back and do the things that you want to do in life.
Those are almost always preventable injuries.
We know how enraging it is to learn that your loved one developed a deep and painful bed sore due to the negligence of a nursing home.
You may have been told that a bed sore was unavoidable. It's not that simple.
WYDC Injury Law is here to help your family get justice.
Call 607-500-HURT
Or visit our website for more information.
There's no fee unless we win, because bed sores should never happen.
Never happen.
Never happen.
Your wallet is always in danger. Criminals can hack your information without you even knowing. Introducing Slim Mint, an ultra-thin RFID blocking wallet that keeps your cards and cash protected. Slim Mint uses the latest RFID blocking technology to prevent thieves from stealing your info. It's ergonomically designed to optimize space and keep your belongings organized. With the auto-locking Slim Mint, your cards and money stay securely in place. It has a built-in cash clip and a flexible outer band to fit your additional cards and cash. Call or click Click now and get Slim Mint for just $29.99. Order in the next 5 minutes and you'll get an instant $10 discount. So it's only $19.99. But wait, due to rising costs, this may be your last chance to get Slim Mint at this low price. There's a strict limit of 3 Slim Mint wallets while supplies last. Don't wait. Order now.
Call 1-800-654-6604. Call or visit slimmintwallet.com. So call 1-800-654-6604. Order now.
Experience the action, splashing, and excitement of the annual Watkins Glen Cardboard Boat Regatta from the comfort of your home this summer. Enjoy this local tradition and fun family event airing on Big Fox and MyTV on the following dates and times. The Watkins Glen Cardboard Boat Regatta broadcast brought to you by these fine sponsors.
And we are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Comment from a viewer. If they had not passed this, meaning the Supreme Court decision, would someone like Harry Truman have been charged with crimes for dropping the bomb by people who disagree with that decision in the future? Yeah, I think that's a very great point. I do think that's the point that the court was making. I'm no lawyer, but that seems to be, listen, I understand why Democrats are very upset over this because they don't like Trump, because it's about Trump. They don't see how this protects, for instance, Barack Obama when he was using drone strikes that people called unconstitutional. So I think a little bit of this is just fanning the flames of discrediting the court, trying to stack the court, because we've seen this attempt to discredit the court now for years, since Trump's justices got in there. And the majority went to conservatives. It's interesting that it's purely partisan. It's all political when Republicans are making a decision that's more Republican. You ever notice when you can pretty much rely on the liberal justices to always be liberal? Then it's not political. That's interesting to me. So Chuck Schumer, the Senate Majority Leader, our senator, said this enables a former president to weaken our democracy by breaking the law. This is a sad day for America and a sad day for our democracy. The very basis of our judicial system is that no one is above the law. Treason or incitement of insurrection should not be considered a core constitutional power afforded to a president. This decision undermines the credibility of the Supreme Court and suggests that political influence trumps all in our courts today. Richard Blumenthal said, my stomach turns with fear and anger that our democracy could be so endangered by an out-of-control court. The members of court's conservative majority will now be rightly perceived by the American people as extreme and nakedly partisan hacks. Politicians in robes. So now they're hacks. You can see, and this is not new, but this trying to discredit the court, because in the past, Democrats were very, very good at using the Supreme Court and the courts to get their unpopular laws into place and not go directly to the American people. They were very good at it. They exploited it. Everybody knows it. We talked about it for years. Then when things switched and turned, now they are no longer big fans of the Supreme Court or the courts in general. Senator Peter Welch said, a Democrat from Vermont, said this activist Supreme Court has unconscionably allowed Donald Trump to evade criminal liability, a move that all but ensures he will never face justice for his attempts to subvert our democracy. It defies logic and our nation's democratic principle that no person is above the law. Today, the Supreme Court stood up for a political figure rather than the rule of law. So now Democrats vow to get more aggressive with the Supreme Court. Now, again, I think, as we've mentioned, this should come as no surprise. They've been calling for stacking the Supreme Court for years. Everyone is making the argument with donors. What does that mean? That's what Axios says, but I think they're confusing their article here. Driving the news, the court ruled 6-3 along ideological lines. We already went through all the quotes. If in a win for Trump, the ruling all but guarantees the case will not go to trial before November 5th. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, again, this coming from Axios, issued a statement and said House Democrats, quote, will engage in aggressive oversight and legislative activity in response. The aim, he said, will be to ensure that the extreme far-right justices in the majority are brought into compliance with the Constitution. That's kind of a scary way of wording that. Brought into compliance. Kind of a threatening nature there. Also calling them extreme far-right, again, because they don't like the decisions. Dan Goldman, representative from New York, said it is incumbent upon the legislative branch to preserve the constitutional foundation of our democracy as three co-equal branches of government. It's going to be interesting where this, here's one example. They floated expanding the court. Representative Bonnie Watson Coleman floated expanding the court and passing a binding code of ethics, while Representative Hank Johnson called to pass term limits for justices. Kind of interesting because how long had Republicans called for term limits on justices? Now, of course, it's a major issue at the forefront. But see, we already have the stacking of the courts. We've already seen calls for that. Now we're seeing calls for term limits. I don't know. What's your thoughts on term limits? I would have no problem on term limits. Joe Morella said that he will introduce a constitutional amendment to reverse the Supreme Court's harmful immunity decision and ensure that no president is above the law. So as I mentioned here, even if Democrats win the House in November, they will have little power to stop a Republican-controlled White House and Senate from tightening their grip on the court, some lawmakers have noticed. AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, representative from New York, says she plans to file articles of impeachment against unnamed Supreme Court justices. I think we know which one she would be going specifically after. Interesting here, isn't it? Impeachment. Boy, impeachment is something they love to throw around. Now, the only justice impeached in American history was Associate Justice Samuel Chase in 1805, and the Senate acquitted him. So AOC said the Supreme Court has become consumed by a corruption crisis beyond its control. Today's ruling represents an assault on American democracy. It is up to Congress to defend our nation from this authoritarian capture. I intend on filing articles of impeachment upon our return. She did not name her specific targets. It's interesting, someone that's a Democrat socialist talking about defending a democracy. Anyway, Biden did issue a warning about the power of the presidency and Trump. Listen, they're not happy with the decision. Don't get me wrong. They wanted to use the lawfare against Trump. All that, the convicted felon label isn't doing enough. So they wanted to continue using this lawfare. So they're not happy with the decision. But Biden did see this as an opportunity, hence the primetime address, that he did see this as an opportunity to maybe make a comeback, get some momentum after that debate performance. The president saying, with today's Supreme Court decision on presidential immunity, that fundamentally changed. For all practical purposes, there are virtually no limits on what the president can do. It's a fundamentally new principle and is a dangerous precedent because the power of the office will no longer be constrained by the law, even including the Supreme Courts of the United States. Did you watch the primetime address last night from the president? He said voters deserve, as one astute viewer pointed out, that the voters deserve the Trump January 6th trial before the election. But he also dodged questions from reporters after, when they asked him, Mr. President, will you drop out of the race? What makes you so confident you should be the president? Shouted another journalist as Biden was leaving. Now, obviously, this last-minute speech was not expected. I think many people could see that it was rushed. It is widely understood to be a way to demonstrate his ability to lead, as fellow Democrats called for him to step aside. The man who sent that, this is what Biden had to say. The man who sent that mob to the U.S. Capitol is facing potential criminal conviction for what happened that day. And the American people deserve to have answers in the courts before the upcoming election. The public has a right to know the answers about what happened on January 6th before they have asked to vote again this year. Do you think by now the American people don't understand January 6th? Because it seems to come up probably more than any other date when it comes to politicians, any other moments in American history. I'm not going to go through everything that Biden had to say, but he's kind of attempting to reframe the election around January 6th, which is something they attempted to do in the beginning. They got the convicted felon label, so they've been using that. We know his quote-unquote threat to democracy line has been a common part of this campaign. Now trying to kind of reset after the debate with this rushed speech. They are now going to focus on January 6th. That's not really any kind of surprise. And I would also say, because, again, reading from a teleprompter, but wanting to show the American people he still got it after the debate performance. So this is why they kind of rushed this. But just because it can never go completely smoothly for the president, he made yet another gaffe in the White House address. After quoting a Supreme Court justice during his speech, Biden gaffed, end of quote, instead of pausing to indicate he finished delivering the quote. We know he refused to take questions from the press as he left the podium. Many people saying he did not look great, but that someone in the White House finally applied bronzer to the president. Yeah, that was something that was really interesting during the debate, wasn't it? When President Biden came out, and it's almost that what they always talk about with Nixon not looking as good because JFK used makeup and those type of things in the early days of television in that debate, just looked bad. But anyway, they bronzed him up, many are suggesting. So Biden seizes on Trump's Supreme Court triumph to seek redemption after the debate debacle. That's coming from CNN and Stephen Collinson. We'll talk more about that. I see a lot of comments coming in. Oh, wow, a couple waves, too. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer.
How do I know if I have a case?
Call 844-292-6222 and consult with one of our attorneys to find out if the products you used are part of the lawsuit. Your eligibility will also depend on how often you use these hair products and your specific cancer diagnosis. If you regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. Call 844-292-6222.
How much will it cost to talk to an attorney?
There is no fee unless we win your case. Call 844-292-6222 for your free case review.
Marianne Crawford. I've lived here for 70 years, but I do fine right here in my house, and I want to be here as long as I can be. And I feel comfortable knowing that if something happened to me, someone would know because of the cameras that are installed in various spots in my home. That has been a wonderful gift to me to be able to have that security and that support from Full Circle America, and that's what it's all about.
What do you do when your tire goes flat and there's no air anywhere? You reach for Bullseye Pro, the smarter, faster, hands-free way to fill it up with air. Bullseye Pro is equipped with a rechargeable lithium-ion power plant. So fast and so convenient. It's like the power of an air compressor in the palm of your hand. Look, you can inflate all 4 tires on a single charge. It has a built-in smart pressure digital sensor that gauges and automatically stops when the set tire pressure is reached. Easily inflate pool toys, exercise balls, and more. Call or go online now and get the complete Bullseye Pro inflation system for the factory direct price of just $79.99. Plus, we'll ship your entire order free, and we'll give you a 50% discount on a second one. Order now.
To order, call 1-800-977-4997. That's 1-800-977-4997, or go to Get Bullseye Pro.
And we are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio, we are talking about the Supreme Court decision. We're also going to move on to the election, some polling has to say. First, comments from viewers. Frankly, today, a great job. Takes courage to tell the truth on the Supreme Court. Go, Frankly, go. You have done well, just the facts and truth. Thank you. That's our goal here. Next up, from a different viewer, I read a Bloomberg article that the DNC could formally nominate Biden as early as July 21st. I heard that as well. I don't know who originally broke it. I saw the Bloomberg article. I have kind of a recap of it from the New York Post, trying to dispel the rumors, just silence the talk of getting rid of Biden. The DNC is eyeing July 21st as a potential date to formally nominate Biden. But I'll continue with what the viewer had to say. I think it's a better thing for the RNC. The DNC is going to rely heavily on abortion rights and their lawfare and lawsuits against Trump. When and if they fail, the ink will still be wet on his victory as they create chaos once again to get him out. A very shameful thing to continue the division of the country. Nothing but sour grapes, hostility, jealousy, and rudeness. Thank you very much. And I asked at the beginning of the program, with this decision by the Supreme Court and also the recent poor performance by Biden in the debate, what did you think Judge Merkin? I know I pronounce his name different every time. Mercan, what do you think his decision will be going forward? July 11th is a sentencing date. As I had said, I thought at one time it would be house arrest, so Trump couldn't campaign, but he didn't look completely biased. Well, this viewer has this to say. I believe that Juan Mercan will try to be the savior of democracy and rule for jail time for Trump, although I'm not sure that it will work in their favor. Yeah, I think Judge Mercan seems to think he's helping more than he is, or also maybe thinks he's more of a political power maker, a political mover and shaker than he actually is. So Biden seizes on Trump's Supreme Court triumph to seek redemption after the debate debacle, according to Stephen Collinson. His address was both a major moment in the institutional history of the presidency and a calculated political gambit. The first step back from a ghastly and humiliating weekend filled by calls for him to abandon his presidential campaign. In 4 minutes, Biden encapsulated the two increasingly grave and urgent choices facing voters in November. Will the country turn again to a 78-year-old former president with authoritarian instincts who believes that the Constitution gives him absolute power? And does Biden, slowed by time's inevitable march and facing an existential personal political crisis, have the strength to be the last barrier to Trump's autocratic ambitions? Wow, they don't even hide their bias anymore. Oh, wow. You know how I... yeah, okay, I got a minute. You know how I mention very often about the media's ego, and it's all about them. They're the most important. That's why they were very upset when Trump used to call them the enemy of the people, because they're supposed to be treated special. Those in the media are supposed to be given special inside access. They're supposed to be able to hobnob with certain politicians they want to. They're just above everybody else in their mind. This, and I had predicted this. I had said this was going to happen, that this was going to be a talking point. MSNBC host Nicole Wallace was weighing in on the Supreme Court decision, and she said, in the very last decision of its term, the highest court in the land handed future presidents a, quote, loaded weapon, in the words of a dissenting justice, aimed straight at the rule of law in the country. The conservative 6-3 majority of the court, half of them appointed by ex-President Donald Trump, 2 others have faced calls for their recusal in this very case, a potentially fatal blow to special counsel Jack Smith's effort to hold the president accountable for crimes he committed on January 6th in the insurrection and the plot to overturn the 2020 election he lost. By the way, that the call to recuse, that was another example of this attempt to discredit the Supreme Court when it comes to Alito. That's why, and then we had Barrett. There was pieces that came out about her. Then you had Clarence Thomas, where they're talking about his donors. Listen, there is obviously an attempt to discredit the Supreme Court. It's been going on since Trump got the majority as conservatives. So this is not shocking, but this is just the beginning of dipping your toes in the water so they can push for stacking the court. So be prepared if Biden gets another 4 years. But I'll continue with what Nicole Wallace had to say. They rule that Donald Trump and all future presidents are entitled to immunity for official acts that they take during their presidency. Now there's a question of whether a president can order a SEAL Team 6 to assassinate a political rival. The United States Supreme Court said, in effect, yeah, maybe. We should pull the curtain back on what is actually happening, shouldn't we? People are exploring options to live in other countries if they think they could be targeted for prosecution by Donald Trump. Because targeting you, or targeting me, or Andrew, must be somebody else on the show, could be an official act based on today's decision. So Trump would be focused, laser-like, on Nicole Wallace and apparently her co-host, Andrew, whoever that is. Just to show you how the media's mindset works. We got to take a break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking.
Isn't your wellness important? Don't you want more energy? Now's the best time to make every day better and relieve those achy muscles and pains than with the Hesselsen's Hot Tub. Hesselsen's has hot tubs in stock and available for immediate delivery with unbelievable savings. Hesselsen's offers 0% interest-free financing for up to 5 full years. Hesselsen's carries the only hot tub brand in the industry with the exclusive freshwater salt system that is eco-friendly and easy to use and only enhances your hot tubbing experience. Come in today and see why your next hot tub should be a Hesselsen's hot tub. And remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselsen's.
Attention, if you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and now have uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call now to see if you qualify. There's no fee unless we win your case.
July 16th on Fox. We're deep in the heart of Texas, where the game's biggest stars align for the Midsummer Classic. Say you want it to be just a rock and roll. Sweet rock and roll. Stars are everywhere. Sensational. Are you kidding me? Ready to throw my rock and roll. The MLB All-Star Game, July 16th on Fox.
Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. I'm your host, Frank Acom. Another comment from a viewer. I used to find Democrats simply misguided and sometimes amusing, but their abuse of the judicial process to attack their political enemies and now threatening to burn down the Supreme Court in the ensuing tantrum when they don't get their way. I wonder if the party is no longer compatible with a constitutional republic. That's a very, very good point. The lawfares, I think, created concerns for people that maybe weren't even necessarily political. I don't know if Dennis Quaid was ever political, the actor. I don't know. But I know when he recently gave that interview and said that was really the straw that broke the camel's back, that he had to support Trump because of the weaponization of the judicial system. And the New York Post editorial board kind of echoes that statement, saying after this Supreme Court ruling, it's time to end lawfare once and for all. And they go through kind of the history of what happened. In short, this is going nowhere, meaning the trial before Election Day. And then the voters will have their say, after which the Justice Department will likely have to drop the charges. Plus, Congress already has had its say in the 2021 impeachment and Senate trial over January 6 charges. The best course now would be for Smith to drop the case altogether and for prosecutors and their Democrat patrons to swear off the use of further lawfare to take down political foes once and for all. All that continuing this prosecution does is continuing to sow division and weaken the nation's already shaky political institutions. In the long run, the real victim here is the American public and its trust in the rule of law from a barrage of political salvos badly disguised as prosecutions. Because I think there's a lot of people, when they saw these charges coming up, realizing this was just an attack on a political opponent. And then it, of course, created that distrust of the judicial system. Now, this is an exact quote from CNN. Saying that Democrats can and certainly will keep pressing their political case following up on Nancy Pelosi's January 6th committee. We're not forgiving Trump for refusing to accept the 2020 election results despite having exhausted all court challenges, nor for standing silent and essentially encouraging rioters to block Congress's certification of the electoral votes on January 6th. Again, this is a quote from the New York Post. Yet treating any of that as criminal actions has always been fraught. And the Constitution names impeachment as a way to correct presidential misconduct. And the lawfare approach has failed. Continuing can only score a few partisan points at the expense of national unity. Doesn't America have enough real problems, the border, inflation, foreign threats, without having to endure more political divisions spawned by a judicial system many already distrust? That's a great point. We see someone like Alvin Bragg, who's not going after real crimes, as we see the murders, and we see so many stories lately of illegal immigrants and these arrests. But he's, and again, not going after the anti-Semitic, anti-Israel protests, but going after Trump. But I'll continue. For the good of the country, the court's ruling Monday should be a call that any further use of all lawfare as a political weapon is done. By the same token, Trump should vow that if he wins in November, he won't prosecute President Biden in revenge. It's time for both sides to quit the game. Far too much is at stake. Short-sighted, tit-for-tat legal battles risk collapsing the very pillars of America's political foundation. I'd agree, and I would like to hear your opinion on that. Do you think that Trump should back off? He has been very clear, I think, that the American people don't want this lawfare. But then every once in a while, in typical Trump fashion, at a rally, something like that, he might go, well, we could go after this person. I think he called out Liz Cheney the other day or something like that. And it gives the media all of this fuel to go after him for this retribution and revenge, which I think plays to Trump's base in a way, you know, cleaning out the swamp, etc. But I'm not sure right now is the right time, but I would love to hear your opinion on it. And I see a lot of comments coming in. We do have our last break to take. We aren't going to focus the whole time. As a matter of fact, I think I'm just about done here talking about the Supreme Court decision, because I want to get to the race for the presidency. But Jonathan Turley, when we come back, we'll read your comments and a quote from Jonathan Turley. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back.
Was your premature baby fed a cow's milk baby formula such as Similac or Enfamil? If so, your child may be entitled to significant financial compensation. Evidence shows that cow's milk formulas increase the risk of NEC in premature babies, causing severe harm and even death. If your child was born premature and suffers from NEC, intestinal perforations, sepsis, cerebral palsy, or died as a result, you may have the right to sue for significant financial compensation. Call now for a free case review.
Hi, I'm and I'm Aubrey. For over 40 years, the Blaze Alexander family dealerships have been making car buying easy, affordable, with respect for your time.
And we do that by treating all of our customers like family.
By making sure you get the lowest rates, biggest discounts, and most for your trade.
By providing clean, comfortable, and convenient service.
By offering the largest selection of new and pre-owned vehicles every day. Visit a Blaze Alexander family dealership,
where we're taking the deals
the other guys won't.
Shell Missy face off in
Why can't we watch DuckTales? Because we don't learn anything.
Book Smarts versus Street Smarts.
Is it working? Are you feeling motivated? Very.
It's the battle of twins.
Life is so confusing. I always hoped it would be easier for me when I grew up. It's gonna be all right. You were faking. Bazinga.
Young Sheldon.
Weeknights at 6:30 on Big Fox.
And we are back with Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, wrapping up hour number one. A few comments from viewers. Frank, when the Democrats can't get people to agree with their policies, agenda, or tactics, they resort to trying to lie, cheat, and scare the people into submission. Thank you very much. And then I had a quote, and I'll re-quote it, from a viewer in the last segment. The viewer had said, and I've read this once, but I used to find Democrats simply misguided and sometimes amusing, but their abuse of the judicial process to attack their political enemies, and now threatening to burn down the Supreme Court and the ensuing tantrum when they don't get their way. I wonder if the party is no longer compatible with a constitutional republic. Well, a different viewer commented on that comment by saying, very brilliant statement of the Democratic Party no longer being compatible with our form of government. Thank you for sharing that. Well, you're welcome. I love getting to all the viewers' comments. So Jonathan Turley says that the Supreme Court's Trump immunity ruling is what the body was designed for. Unpopular, but constitutionally correct. Now, he goes through, goes through and mentions some of the kind of fear-mongering or the kind of outlandish statements. Van Jones declaring it almost a license to thug in a way. Richard Blumenthal said he got sick to his stomach. I already read that one. Blumenthal has previously shown greater intestinal fortitude as when he threatened the justices that they would either rule as Democrats demanded or face seismic changes to their court. Jones warned the justices that politically it's bad for them to rule this way. The comments capture the misguided analysis of many media outlets. The Supreme Court was designed to be unpopular, to take stands that are politically unpopular but constitutionally correct. Indeed, the Democrats have become the very threat that the court was meant to resist. Senators demanded that Chief Justice Roberts appear to answer to them for his own decision. Roberts wisely declined. Chuck Schumer previously declared in front of the Supreme Court, I want to tell you, Gorsuch, I want to tell you, Kavanaugh, you have released the whirlwind and you will pay the price. Remember that? AOC announced that she's going to look for impeachment. Notably, scholars have long disagreed where to draw the line on presidential immunity, and he goes through this whole history. Jonathan Turley, you can find this at the New York Post. But this is the moment that the framers envisioned in creating the court under Article 3 of the Constitution. It would be our bulwark even when politicians lose faith in our Constitution and seek to dictate justice for those who they dislike. So that's, again, you can find the full piece at the New York Post. Rich Lowry says the Supreme Court leaves Trump's insurrection case on life support and indicts the Justice Department. Saying, at the very end here, I have it, showing remarkably poor judgment, Smith assumed that everyone, including the Supreme Court of the United States, would go along. Now that it hasn't, he's poorly positioned to assist Joe Biden when he needs it the most. And that's why I asked the question to that point at the beginning of the program. What do you think Merchant's decision will now be, as it has been a bad week for President Biden? Do you think that changes what his sentencing will be on July 11th, coming up right around the corner? When we come back, we're going to talk about, hour number 1 is already through. It is hard to believe hour number 1 is already through. I thank you for joining us. Okay, here's a comment from a viewer, though, before we wrap up. There was more heartening news I heard that makes me more comfortable about Biden. They said he was dependable, engaged between the hours of 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. Now I only worry for 18 hours a day. Good point, Ken. Yes, that was somehow their defense of Biden. That, yeah, he had a bad performance. But, the debate started at 9 o'clock at night. And, boy, he is sharp as a tack from 10 a.m. till 4 p.m. Just after that, and he's not that good on foreign trips. But other than that, I mean, he is spot on. Kind of interesting. Hey, it's just like the argument that he had a cold. I mean, you can throw it at the wall and see what sticks. I guess it's worth a shot. Thanks for all these waves coming in. Appreciate it. I better not. I can't keep trying to read live on the air. Sorry. Keep those comments coming in. This hour, frankly speaking, is through. 1 hour left together. And we've had such a great discussion so far. You can continue to weigh in on the Supreme Court decision, but we are going to move on the larger part of the show to talking about the presidential race. So stay with us. Just 1 hour left together. It's hard to believe we ever did this for just 1 hour. Oh, also, just out of curiosity, if you happen to see the Cardboard Boat Regatta over the weekend, I'd love to know what you thought. It was fun hosting that, and I've heard from some people, but I'd love to hear from you. So let's take this short break, and then we'll be back with hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking. Stay with us.
Our water's better tasting, it's better for the planet.
That's great, sir. Can I take your order?
Oh, number 3.
At Culligan, we get that most people don't think about water like we do, and that's okay. You see, when we install our drinking water and softening systems, we're thinking about filtering contaminants and the minerals that make water hard. So you can just think about softer, cleaner, better tasting water. At Culligan, we think about your water, so you don't have to.
Call today to schedule your free water test.
Are you 50? Would
You'd like to get up to 33% more income in retirement? Then call now and get this free book, Annuity Do's and Don'ts for Baby Boomers, from a leading financial firm on maximizing your income in retirement. This book reveals little-known secrets about annuity strategies in simple-to-understand terms that can help you make the right choices before buying an annuity. And if you call right now, as a bonus, we'll throw in a free annuity rate report. We've researched over 1,200 annuities summarizing the rates and benefits for you. So don't miss out on this opportunity because supplies are limited. Call now and find out how you can get up to 33% more income in your retirement, and you'll receive Annuity Do's and Don'ts for Baby Boomers and the Annuity Rate Report as an added bonus. Both books are yours free, just for calling Annuity General today.
Call 800-354-5972. That's 800-354-5972. Again, 800-354-5972.
Welcome to hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, and we are broadcasting live and proudly from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. Receiving so many comments. I really appreciate that. We were talking about in the first hour the Supreme Court decision. We move along now to, well, it does tie in, of course, to the calls for President Biden to step aside. There's a poll, and I believe it's an internal poll that the Biden campaign released. And according to Survey USA, a majority of Democrats say that Biden is up to the job. Former President Donald Trump leads incumbent President Joe Biden 45% to 43%, so 2-point difference, among likely voters in an election if the election was held today. And this was the day after the debate. 6% of likely voters said that they would vote for another candidate. 7% are undecided. Another takeaway from this poll, 55% of likely Democrat voters say Biden should continue his run for a second term in office. 34% say he should step aside and allow another Democrat to run. 10% aren't sure. Now, if Biden does not step aside, 57% of likely Democratic voters say the Democratic Party should nominate him to run again at the DNC this August. 33% say they should nominate another Democrat instead. Well, it's up to, that's one of the problems with whatever this outlet is, Survey USA. It's up to Biden. At the end of the day, the mechanisms are in place that if he wants to continue to run, they can't change the delegate votes. Now, as we mentioned earlier, and a viewer commented, and this is from Bloomberg, you were right, I just happen to have the recap from the New York Post. But the Democratic National Committee is considering naming President Biden the party's nominee early, maybe even at the end of this month, a move that could curb talk of replacing Biden. The DNC is eyeing July 21st as the potential date to formally nominate Biden. The date coincides with a meeting of the Democratic Convention's Credentials Committee, which will be held after the rules and procedures formalizing Biden's virtual nomination are finalized on July the 19th. The DNC has already planned on nominating Biden through an electronic vote prior to the in-person Democratic National Convention, which starts August 19th. That was because of a weird rule that would have kicked him off the ballot if they did not. Kicked off the ballot, and I believe it was Ohio. So could be nominated early just to get all of those questions out of the minds of the American people. Frustrated Democrats watch for debate fallout, and I love this line, as Republicans pounce on Biden's poor showing. That has become kind of just a laugh line for Republicans. That we talk about it a lot on this program, where the media will always say Republicans pounce, Republicans attack. It's just a weird way in this headline. I mean, if the shoe was on the other foot, don't you think Democrats would pounce? Also, do you ever see that? Democrats pounce on Trump's performance. I don't know. Bob Casey, a Democrat whose seat is crucial to maintaining his party's slim Senate majority in November, faced a new attack ad Sunday from his Republican challenger. Casey, the McCormick ad claims, knew of Joe Biden's status and stood by the president anyway. So this could be a new kind of, what do you want to call it? New political ad saying you knew about the president's health and yet you continue to lie to the American people, because we saw that with the media. That's an interesting take on this. So more attack ads like that coming up in the future. Also, I know I keep bringing this story up, and I probably shouldn't. But Ed Cox, the New York State GOP chairman, he believes that New York is ripe for Trump's taking. Now, why should I not bring this up? I just think we get our hopes up so often in New York, like with Lee Zeldin and others. Lee Zeldin did a great job. It's just such a huge hurdle to overcome New York City when it comes to numbers. So I'd ask you, what do you think? New York has not favored a Republican presidential candidate since Reagan in 80 and 84. But the trend is likely to change, said Republican Party Chair Ed Cox. President Biden's tenure is increasingly showing parallels to Jimmy Carter, says Cox. He says that the state is truly blue-collar blue, not West Side Manhattan blue. Cox said that while the state has high-profile pockets of progressive strongholds, New Yorkers overall are pragmatic and are truly having deja vu from the run-up to the last time the state shocked the country on Election Day. We have a lot of independents here in New York, and they're the ones who are going to take a look, and they're going to say, are we going to risk it? New Yorkers, take a look at what's going on in the foreign arena and the weakness of Biden. It just shows again that Biden is just out of touch with what the American people want, probably because of his infirmities, whatever you want to say. But Carter was out of touch too, if you take a look at his speech. It's not quite the same, but it still shows that they're out of touch with where the American people are, while President Trump is in touch. It leads to other very interesting analogies. He then noted Reagan's "Are you better off than you were 4 years ago?" remark. Well, yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. Are you better off? While former Representative Lee Zeldin came very close by New York standards to defeating Hochul, he still fell short. Zeldin, too, had the message of being tough on crime. While, unlike the state's last Republican governor, George Pataki, he had to prematurely expend resources in a costly primary. Anyway, do you think there is a chance that former President Trump could win New York State in the general election? Again, you know my thoughts on it. I'm very pessimistic, very jaded on that, but I would love to hear from you. So one of the kind of focuses of Biden's quote-unquote fall from grace in that debate performance, one of the heavy criticisms has been about Jill Biden. Many people saying that Jill Biden should have taken her husband at one point and said, maybe don't run for re-election. Maybe sit this one out. But then people speculate, well, she perhaps likes the limelight, or, much like Joe Biden's ego, maybe she believes he is the only man for the job. Oh, also, and I'm going to tell you about that in a second. Remember how yesterday and the last couple of days I've been saying, man, it's got to hurt to be Kamala Harris, because her name is never mentioned when it comes to potential replacements if they were to replace Biden. Just never. Well, there is a piece out today saying, yeah, especially her supporters are mad about it. But anyway, why Jill Biden won't urge the president to end his re-election bid. This coming from Kate Anderson Brower, who's I think a First Lady kind of historian. And she says, Biden is in a very different position, running against a convicted felon. Jill Biden is not going to suggest that he bow out and potentially, at least in her mind, hand the presidency to Trump. And that's one of the reasons why you're starting to see the rallying around Biden a little bit better, because obviously there's the power of the incumbency. There's the campaign mechanisms that are already in effect. There's the campaign team. There's the donations. So many people believe that even though Biden had that poor performance, if he is replaced, that person is starting from day one, kind of a tough, it would make the party look like the party of chaos. Let's put it that way. So Kristen Fleming writes, because if you're not familiar, maybe you didn't get your monthly subscription. I don't even know if it's monthly, quarterly, I don't know. Vogue magazine, Jill Biden is on Vogue. And Kristen Fleming suggested that proves how painfully out of touch the president's family is. After that horrific debate performance, much of the media world reluctantly conceded that our 46th president looks like a lost toddler. Yeah, and that's why I find it interesting that CNN and so many other places are saying it's time for Biden to leave. New York Times, many others. because I think they've wanted for a long time. And I've said that about the New York Times for a while. They've wanted somebody else for a long time. This gave them their window of opportunity to go after Biden in a way that was pretty easy for them to take that position without looking like they didn't outright want Biden. We've got a lot of comments coming in, and I just realized it's already 7:10 on this Tuesday morning, July 2nd. So stay with us. We'll read some of your comments. Got a lot more to discuss. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back.
Sports Route 13 in Newfield. Get outside and ride.
Hi, I'm Suzanne. Welcome to Pangea Global Tea House.
Pangea Global Tea House offers comfort foods of the world. Over 50 teas, a sampling of cuisine from over 10 countries. Globally inspired cuisine and striving to give you an ultimate experience. Come in and try the frankly delicious Turkey Club special for just $20, including your beverage of choice. Pangea Global Tea House. Yet a really good tea house bringing you the flavors of the world, offering something for everyone.
Great drivers change lanes very fast, but with no outside mirrors. How come they don't crash? Introducing Angel View, the new wide-angle mirror that reduces blind spots. Angel View simply snaps over your car's rear view mirror, giving you a 160-degree view behind you. Ordinary rear view mirrors are small and flat, but Angel View has a huge mirror with curved glass. This convex shape allows you to see both blind spots with one glance. And with our Pro Edition special coating, it's anti-glare at night. Get your Angel View now for just $19.99 through this special offer. But wait, this may be your last chance to get Angel View at this low price. There is a strict limit of 2 Angel Views per order while supplies last. Order now.
Call 1-800-869-5346. That's 1-800-869-5346. Or visit getangelview.com. So call 1-800-869-5346 now.
This website is here now. WYDCTV.com. Local and national news that keeps you informed and involved. WYDCTV.com. Today's weather, up to date and in your town. WYDCTV.com. Sports news, local events, and health stories that affect you. WYDCTV.com. The Big Fox website. Your news here now. WYDCTV.com.
We are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, I am your host, Frank Aiken. We've got so many comments coming in that is, you got a little extra music, but thank you for joining us. Here we go. Frank, can you imagine the noise coming from the Democrats and legacy media if Trump was performing like Biden? Oh, well, here's another point to that, Ken. And yes, I could imagine it. And you know exactly what it would be. But the difference is, you've got, in most instances, the Democrats railing around Biden. I believe if the shoe was on the other foot, like you mentioned, yes, the media, the Democrats would be going after him full force, saying it's a threat to democracy. Again, it's putting our country in great harm and great risk. So, yeah, you could see the noise coming from them. But, the Republicans would turn on him, too. They'd be calling for him to step down. And I don't even know if he would have made it to a Tuesday after a Thursday debate if it was the same essential performance. And the media, yes, would have been full-throated in their attacks. Next comment from a different viewer. Hey, all these waves coming in. For a little comic relief, didn't you find it amusing the other day when Jill Biden strutted out on the stage with President Biden in that blue and white dress with the word vote plastered all over it? It did look interesting. Yes, it was not necessarily Just it caught me off guard. The dress itself, yes. So I would agree with that. Another comment from viewer. Look at all these comments coming in. I have not heard anyone, or excuse me, I have not heard anybody yet mention Justice Thomas's concurrence that points out another illegality of Biden's Justice Department prosecution of Trump. The fact that Jack Smith being appointed as special counsel by the Attorney General is illegal. Thomas points out that only Congress can approve such a position and that what Biden did was an example of, quote, the most insidious and powerful weapon of 18th century despotism. Not only is Biden an authoritarian, he's an old school one. That's a very good point. We had glanced over what Thomas had said about Jack Smith, so that is a very good point. But I want to get back to what Jill Biden, about this Vogue cover, that Kristen Fleming shows just how out of touch the Biden family is with this. There's Vogue, which literally couldn't stop the presses. The fashion Bible turned Democratic PR machine was already rolling out its July issue, with the cover model being Jill Biden in a silk screen Ralph Lauren dress that retails for $4,990. Now, if you recall at the time of President Trump, there was a lot of criticism that Melania was never, who was a model, was never asked to be on magazines like Vogue and these fashion magazines. Yeah, anytime there's a first lady, typically Obama, Michelle Obama, and of course in this case Jill Biden getting that model treatment. But continuing, isn't it a little tone deaf too? $4,990 when inflation is killing us. And yeah, they didn't know this was going to come out right after the debate. But let's push that aside. Probably not exactly the best image. Kind of like when AOC attended the Met Gala with that very expensive dress that said, what, like socialism or something. I can't remember exactly what it said. So the magazine landed on the internet Monday morning with a thud. It was tone deaf. It was tacky. But this shoot and interview conducted months ago would have been messy even if the debate disaster had never happened. Jill had the gall to tell the writer, "We don't need more chaos." This from one of the country's top chaos agents, a woman who was reportedly encouraging her visibly frail husband by telling him and us that he should keep running the country. This piece, this glowing review of Jill, paints her as a tireless every woman out in the world. The president's eyes and ears. It sounds like somebody has to be at this point, as Kristen Fleming said. Look, I know that food prices are up, she said, adding that she shops for her own groceries in Wilmington, Delaware. She still teaches at a community college in Virginia. She's a down-to-earth Dr. B who assigns her students articles instead of books because books are expensive. She gathers and feeds Joe intel. I tell him what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing, and he gets it. And this is where the magic happens. But there's nothing enchanting about Jill shepherding her husband through menial tasks to appear capable, as she did with the, "Joe, you did a great job. You answered all the questions." Such an awkward moment at that rally after the debate. No 2024 Biden campaign piece will be complete without a healthy infusion of the old fear-mongering Democrat mantra that democracy is on the line, which Jill literally tells Vogue before rolling out variations. Each campaign is unique, but this one, the urgency is different. We know that's what's at stake. Joe is asking the American people to come together to draw a line in the sand against all this vitriol. Too bad the Vogue writer never addressed Biden's advanced age or how an abundance of trips around the sun have clearly taken a physical and mental toll. At the 11th hour, the magazine added an online editor's note addressing the disaster of the debate. The Biden family will not let those 90 minutes define the 4 years he's been president. We will continue to fight, Jill said. But we're not talking about the last 4 years. That's history. We're talking about the next 4 years. At a frail 81, Joe's sharpest days are in the rearview mirror. We know it. The Bidens know it, says Kristen Fleming. So anyway, in the Vogue profile's opening paragraph, the writer inadvertently tells on the Bidens' intoxication by influence. Quote, "If you want to know what the power feels like, try to get yourself driven around in a motorcade," the story says, describing how they run red lights and whip around curves so fast I can barely take in the commonplace American view. Tract housing, big box stores, churches, office parks, semi-industrial no man's land. Vogue gushes that it is as if the world is holding its breath. For you, also, rules don't apply. Well, maybe for a time they don't, but Father Time is indeed undefeated. Sadly, Biden will be remembered not as a spry verbal spar with a gift of gab, but as a picture of an aging, and senility, confused, doddering, and in decline. But the Bidens have their priorities, and Dr. Jill can now add another Vogue cover to her wall. It is her third, by the way. It's her third Vogue magazine. I don't think Melania was ever on one. Hopefully, they give her comfort when she's watching Trump's acceptance speech. That's Kristen Fleming. Now, Joe has lost some of his Hollywood donors. He needs to show people that he's back up to the job. Now, that's a big voting block. Well, voting block's not the right word, but donor block for Joe Biden. So that's, I don't think they completely abandon him, but the money might not flow as freely. Democrat donors, according to the New York Post, are giving Biden a 2-week grace period, a window to see what happens with the polls, see how he does. Now, that's why, as we know, last night's speech, primetime speech about the Supreme Court decision was to ensure voters that, no, everything's okay. Never mind the debate performance. We're right back at it. Biden campaign donors are giving the president a 2-week grace period in the wake of his disastrous debate performance. Any decline in the 81-year-old president's polling numbers after those 2 weeks are up once those 2 weeks are up will become problematic and difficult for donors to stomach. That's a source privy to a call with top campaign contributors, what they said on Monday. The Democrat National Finance Committee tamped down speculation that Biden would end his re-election bid during an hour-plus-long Zoom call intended to put top donors at ease. The call was very reassuring, the source said. He's all in, moving forward. He will do better at the next debate. The campaign is going about business as usual. They got rid of any speculation he will drop out. The whole call is about the path forward. As we mentioned, they're talking about moving up the nominating date to get him officially nominated by July 21st. So think of that, too. There's only one more debate, unless he comes out and wants to schedule more, which can't imagine that would be the case. The next debate in September. But so anyway, according to that source, a big-time Democrat donor, that he's got about two weeks. Democrats are not, or donors are not asking for their money back, the person insisted. There's also, there's a lot of people, just like with these Hollywood people, not happy with how that performance went. John Morgan, who is a big donor to Democrats, saying Joe Biden's advisors failed him. Format was a disaster for him and a plus for Trump. He overpracticed and was drained. Who wouldn't be? Biden has for too long been fooled by the value of Anita Dunn and her husband. They need to go today. The grifting is gross. It was political malpractice. Wow. So they are turning against his advisors. A week-long debate prep at Camp David. I can't believe they're turning on the other people as if, okay, maybe he was exhausted. Maybe it did seem like he was overthinking things. That's why he beat Medicare, because I think he was trying to go through his head with all these talking points. The format, though, this is where I'll disagree, because maybe you could say that his advisors made a mistake in wanting that format from CNN, and you could make that argument. But, boy, on paper, that looked like a huge, and I think it still was to Biden's advantage. It just happened to be that Biden had such a bad night and that Trump ended up using those rules to his advantage. But I don't think anybody can disagree when I say that wasn't intended to benefit Trump in any way. And most of us thought it gave in too much to Biden's demands and that Trump shouldn't have accepted those. In the long term, I was incorrect on that. We got to take a break, though. Jen Psaki was caught saying that Biden's bad debate performance was not because of the aides who prepped him too hard. Now, of course, she was the press secretary for the Biden administration for a while. It was a bad debate. I have no doubt they were tough, strategic, and direct. Believe me, I've seen them in action, meaning his advisors behind the scenes. Biden was bad. Important convos about what happens next. But if you are directing your ire at prep, you are not talking about the right things. Here we go. We got to take a break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer.
How do I know if I have a case?
Call 844-292-6222 and consult with one of our attorneys to find out if the products you used are part of the lawsuit. Your eligibility will also depend on how often you use these hair products and your specific cancer diagnosis. If you regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. Call 844-292-6222.
How much will it cost to talk to an attorney?
There is no fee unless we win your case. Call 844-292-6222 for your free case review.
I'm Marianne Burke. I've lived here for 70 years, but I do fine right here in my house, and I want to be here as long as I can be. And I feel comfortable knowing that if something happened to me, someone would know because of the cameras that are installed in various spots in my home. That has been a wonderful gift to me to be able to have that security and that support from Full Circle America, and that's what it's all about.
You need it, but they're bulky, awkward, and never put the breeze exactly where you want it. Introducing my fold-away fan from Bell & Howell, the compact cordless fan that unfolds into your own personal wind machine and extends to nearly 4 feet high. Its lightweight, portable design makes it easier than ever to have a targeted breeze anywhere. Plus, this whisper-quiet fan has 3 separate speeds, making personalizing your comfort a breeze. My fold-away fan's rechargeable lithium battery lasts up to 10 hours, and it has enough power to blast a breeze to the other side of this room. Its unique telescoping stand allows you to place it on the floor, so the breeze will reach anywhere with ease. Then the whole thing folds away for easy storage. Get my fold-away fan from Bell & Howell for just 2 payments of $19.99. It comes with the USB cable to make charging fast and easy. My fold-away fan. Call or click now.
Call 1-800-349-4156. That's 1-800-349-4156 or go to myfoldawayfan.com.
Broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. You are watching Frankly Speaking. Thank you for joining us. Comment from a viewer. I never understood why Hollywood backs Democrats. Do you have any explanation for this? Not always. I mean, in the past, way in the past, you look at the John Waynes of the world, not necessarily backing Democrats. But I think now it's the quote-unquote cool thing to do. I also think there's behind the scenes, kind of like the swamp we see in Washington and in the media. I think there's that idea that the powers that be, that if you come out and show that you're not a Democrat or support Democrat causes, it's most likely the end of your career. If you look at some of the few that have bucked the trend and been conservative, been a little more Republican, there normally is a pushback. You become a social pariah. You lose your jobs in many instances. John Voight is a prime example of someone that should have been receiving Lifetime Achievement Awards at this point. If he were a Democrat, of course, as Republican, he is mocked and ridiculed. So I think it's kind of the power structure. But isn't it interesting that the power structure is also the power structure that caused to the keeping quiet the Weinsteins of the world? It's, I don't know. Hollywood sounds like a pretty disgusting place at times. Morning Joe okay, I know you weren't watching. I wasn't watching either because we had the show. Having said that, I'm not exactly sure what time Morning Joe was on, so I think we compete. Did you see Mika Brzezinski's 15-minute monologue defending Joe Biden's White House bid? Mika Brzezinski acknowledged the poor debate. They're all acknowledging it. It was bad. Biden couldn't seem to land a thought. It was unmitigated disaster by any measure. Nonetheless, she countered what she called the global call for Biden to drop out and make way for a new candidate. Now, in full disclosure, Mika Brzezinski is a close family friend to the Bidens. She praised Biden for the vintage sparkle in his eyes and winning smile at the rally the next day. I still believe in Joe Biden. I've learned that counting him out is always a mistake, and doing that now would be catastrophic for our country. I have to say, well, first of all, think of how many times the media lied to us. We had Joe Scarborough on that show saying weeks ago that Biden was as sharp as he's ever been, sharpest man he's ever known. They continued to lie to us, and now they're trying to backtrack and kind of reframe the conversation. But I would go back to Ken's point, who made that comment earlier on. Never mind what the Democrats and the legacy media would be saying if this were Trump that had this performance, because I think Trump would have been out already. But yeah, they would have said that the Republicans that still back him are a threat to this country. They would have went after the individuals still supporting him. But with Biden, they're rallying around, rallying the troops, aren't they? It makes me angry that he was moving across the world on 4 different time zones. It seems to me this is a lack of discipline, Brzezinski said about his recent trips. She acknowledged the sneering, mocking, jeering headlines published across the country, pointing to multiple outlets who have published editorials calling on the president to step out of the race, including the New York Times. The newspaper's editorial board said that Biden had been an admirable president. American voters cannot be expected to ignore what we saw in plain sight. Mr. Biden is not the man he was 4 years ago. This is going to be something interesting. If he does stay in and lose, it's very much his legacy amongst Democrats is the fact that he beat Donald Trump. Now he is jeopardizing that legacy, much like a Ruth Bader Ginsburg, where they love her, but then realize she stayed in too late. I don't know. I just find it very interesting. But if you want to watch that 15-minute dissertation by Mika Brzezinski, feel free. You can find it, I'm sure, somewhere. That real inside look at politics. James Carville, the raging Cajun, who's been very active lately, hasn't he? We've quoted him a lot. Very critical of Republicans, of course. Well, Jake Tapper asked James Carville, James, can President Biden win re-election this November? Carville said, this is not the real question here. The real question here is we have a Supreme Court that's bought and paid for by RVs and fishing outings. We have a country that 72% wants something different. If the Democrat Party can't produce something different than 72% of people want, why do we exist? What are we here for? I mean, the country is clamoring for change. And what are we going to offer them? The same stuff? It doesn't make any sense, Jake. Give people what they want. They want something different. Let's give it to them. I mean, I just don't get the whole thing. I'll be honest with you. Everybody saw what they saw Thursday night. I don't take any pleasure in this. If this was a year ago, I'm going to be 80 in October. You can't fight this stuff. It's just there. It's what happens. If the Democrat Party is so committed to the status quo and so committed to sticking with something that 3/4 of the country doesn't want, then we have to say, why do we exist? What are we here for? So James Carville asking why the Democratic Party even exists at this point. Jake Tapper said Biden huddled with his family over the weekend, and we're told that his family thinks he should stay in the race. What's your response? Carville said, maybe they love you, but their judgment is clouded by love. I mean, I really like Christmas and Biden, but man, the country wants something new. So yes, you do have some people calling out for a new potential candidate. Senator Thom Tillis, a Republican, senator from North Carolina, he says for the sake of the country, Biden should step aside. And he goes through the full debate performance. Throughout his presidency, the White House has repeatedly tried to shut down any discussion over Biden's fitness to serve. The debate last week now makes that discussion a necessity. Yeah, the media covered for him. The politicians covered for him. If Biden cannot speak coherently or articulate his policies and is unfit to perform after nearly a week of preparation, how will he perform when America is truly tested by a national security crisis, the kind of historic, high-stakes situation his predecessors have been confronted with? And don't think for a moment, I know we've talked about this, but that Iran, Russia, China watched that debate performance with glee. And that's what Thom Tillis said. Our adversaries could view Biden's seeming cognitive and physical decline as an opportunity to expedite their goal of ending America's status as the world's preeminent superpower. That makes our world far more dangerous and Americans less safe. It might flash the green light for our adversaries, China, Russia, Iran, and elsewhere, to test Biden, to see how many steps he's really lost. Keep in mind, there was already question marks hanging over Biden's judgment well before he became president. As the Obama-Biden administration's defense secretary Robert Gates wrote in his book in 2014, I think meaning Biden, I think Biden has been wrong on nearly every major foreign policy and national security issue over the past 4 decades. And his judgment has not become any better. For the sake of the country, Biden should step aside. If he is unaware of his own unfitness to continue serving, his cabinet should consider invoking the 25th Amendment, in which the cabinet can vote to transfer powers and authorities from the president to the vice president. Such a historic move would be in our nation's best interest, serving as a vital deterrent to America's enemies during the increasingly dangerous time. It is interesting. Again, I have this piece. Hopefully we'll get to it because I got to take a short break. But Kamala Harris and her supporters going, why is Kamala never mentioned? They're outraged. Yeah, we're going to talk more about some of the criticisms of Biden, what some others had to say, and some of your comments. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Looks like y'all got a lot of stuff here in your water.
You're never going to believe it, but this can filter up to 60 different contaminants from your water.
It's all about cleaner drinking water.
Dude, that's good water.
And that's good water.
Now that's good water.
That's good water, eh?
No matter where you live, there's a Culligan water expert nearby. At Culligan, we think about your water so you don't have to.
Call today to schedule your free water test.
Our drivers change lanes very fast, but with no outside mirrors. How come they don't crash? Introducing Angel View, the new wide-angle mirror that reduces blind spots. And now may be your last chance to get one before they're gone. Angel View simply snaps over your car's rear view mirror, giving you a 160-degree view behind you. Look, ordinary rear view mirrors are small and flat, but Angel View has a huge mirror with curved glass. This convex shape allows you to see both blind spots with one glance. Here's what you see with that ordinary rear view mirror, and here's what you see with Angel View. Look, over 800,000 blind spot accidents occur each year. You think you're clear to change lanes, but you're not. And that's why they call it a blind spot. But Angel View's crystal clear mirror gives you perfect panoramic vision without that awful fisheye effect like other little mirrors. And with our Pro Edition special coating, it's anti-glare at night. Angel View installs in seconds to virtually any car or SUV. And the spring-loaded rubber feet automatically adjust to hold on tight. From a senior driver to a first-time teen, and everyone in between. With Angel View, you see them. Without it, you won't. Get your Angel View now for just $19.99 through this special offer. But wait, there's breaking news. Angel View may be discontinued. Due to rising costs and supply chain shortages, Angel View is stopping manufacturing effective immediately. There is a strict limit of 3 Angel Views per order while supplies last. Once the current inventory is gone, it's gone forever. Order now.
Call 1-800-897-0593. That's 1-800-897-0593 or visit getangelview.com. So call 1-800-897-0593. Order now.
And we are back with Frankly Speaking. Thank you for joining us. Broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. I'm your host, Frank Acom. There is not a Steuben Senior Services Fund part of our program this morning, meaning an interview this week because of July 4th. I know a lot of people are off. I decided to save some guests, but I do have a guest that I'll be making an announcement a little bit later on probably tomorrow's show about a really special guest that we have coming on the program. Okay, a comment from a viewer. In my opinion, it would take divine intervention for a Republican to win New York State. I don't think it's been an honest and fair election in years. I don't see, the city is just so overpowering with the numbers that it's just too much to overcome. So I'm a little bit jaded on that too. But Ed Cox, if you're just joining us, the chairman of the state Republican Party, believes that Trump could win New York State. So longtime Biden Senate colleague calls for a new candidate, calling the debate performance a disaster. Former Iowa Senator Tom Harkin, remember that name? He said, of course, Trump's answers were meandering gobbledygook and full of lies, but they were said with force and directness. I also think all incumbent Democrat senators should write to Biden asking him to release his delegates and step aside so the convention can choose a new candidate. A couple of governors may need to do the same. Last night was a disaster for which Biden cannot recover. The Iowa Democrats said the president has gone downhill since the State of the Union speech. Why are we still believing that the State of the Union speech was that great? You've got a teleprompter. There's so many. No, anyway. Now, I think John Fetterman has a point. John Fetterman is the Democrat senator from Pennsylvania. been very pro-Israel. It's been nice, refreshing coming from a Democrat to be pro-Israel. He was on the Situation Room on CNN. He said, he was referencing Jamie Raskin. Raskin said there are conversations about Biden among Democrats moving forward after the debate. Fetterman said, I'm a gigantic fan of Representative Raskin. Just in that situation, I don't necessarily agree with some of those views on that. I have disagreed with Joe Biden often, whether it was the Israel war or whether it was with the border. That's a major issue. And just, if I don't believe exactly what I'm saying right now, I wouldn't be on your show right now talking about that. And let me just say this too. If you think you're a friend of the president, then you don't say that on national television, or you don't put that in the nation's biggest paper. You reach out in private. But if Joe Biden doesn't call you up and ask your opinion, then maybe you're not that kind of close friend that you think you are. But Joe Biden has a right, and he's earned that right to have his support. And he's been a great president throughout all of it. Now there is, let's talk about the potential to replace Biden, right? Henry Olsen says that because of the debate meltdown, there's talks of Biden being replaced. There are obvious best choices if they think it through. A ticket of Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer and Georgia Senator Ralph Warnock. That's who that Henry Olsen believes is the only Democrat ticket that could replace Biden and Harris. And he goes on to talk about Harris's communication problem. I just don't see the optics of that. Looks horrible to not give her the shot. So basically the Democrats are admitting that Harris does not have the capability to be second in line, or heaven forbid, end up being that first in line, being the president of the United States. They have admitted this from the beginning, having painted themselves into a corner at the time and hiring her because of a promise that Biden had made. But you've got to be kind of upset. Now, Gretchen Whitmer, I don't know if I think I'm pronouncing that right. I only ever read it. Talk about good luck. Her book is about to drop. She's got a book coming out, as many wannabe presidents and vice presidents do. Her book's coming out on July 9th amid Biden replacement rumors as, quote, book deal gamble seems to have paid off, says the source. Well, have you read it yet, though? Because it could be, you don't want it to be a gnome situation where she's in there bragging about something she shouldn't be bragging about. True Gretch, it's called. What I've learned about life, leadership, and everything in between. Boy, there's a lot of political books that look very boring, don't they? So what's the chances of them coming out at this exact moment? Good for her. Now, according to a report from Politico, Kamala Harris's allies, her friends, they seethe with anger as white Democrats dominate the Biden replacement talk. Chatter about replacing Biden at the top of the Democrat ticket with several different Democrat governors is reportedly irking those in Vice President Harris's orbit, with one source saying the discussions send an underlining message that the party deserves, quote, a white candidate. Wow. Politico reported the sour feeling within Harris's camp as Governors Gavin Newsom and Gretchen Whitmer have been at the forefront of the media speculation as who could replace him. The article also points to Governors J.B. Pritzker and Josh Shapiro as others mentioned as potential alternatives to Biden. That is interesting. And I would just be upset that my name's not being mentioned at all. If you were trusted to be 4 years as vice president, how are you not somewhere on a short list within the Democrat Party? I'd also say the optics of replacing her, like this article goes to make, does not sound like a winning strategy from the Democrat Party. The fact that they keep, let's see, this is one of the sources. Behind the scenes, Harris allies are expressing frustration that her name is not being mentioned in the same company as other ambitious Democrats. The fact that people keep coming back to this is so offensive to so many of us. They still don't get that the message you're saying to people, to this Democrat Party, is we prefer a white person. If they think they're going to get through South Carolina bashing an effective and qualified black woman vice president, their instincts are as bad as I thought they were, the anonymous source said. Here's the problem, and this isn't even picking on Harris. Just historically, Harris is not the best politician. Her biggest claim to fame was in that debate where she called her future boss a racist or a bigot. That's her best. She never made it to the vote in Iowa. So they kind of painted themselves in a corner. So hired her as vice president. Now they know that it would be a disaster for their party to put her up if it comes down to that. And she has, and I hate the term now because it's overused, but she has that penchant for making the word salads that are kind of embarrassing, those sentences that almost you start somewhere and don't know where it's going to end. But I can understand why she'd be upset. I had mentioned it for the last few days since the debate that I would be a little upset. We got to take a short break. I see some other comments coming in. We'll try to get to as many as we can. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back.
Isn't your wellness important? Don't you want more energy? Now's the best time to make every day better and relieve those achy muscles and pains than with the Hesselson's Hot Tub. Hesselson's has hot tubs in stock and available for immediate delivery with unbelievable savings. Hesselson's offers 0% interest-free financing for up to 5 full years. Hesselson's carries the only hot tub brand in the industry with the exclusive freshwater salt system that is eco-friendly and easy to use and only enhances your hot tubbing experience. Come in today and see why your next hot tub should be a Hesselson's hot tub. And remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
What's up, guys? What I'm about to show you is going to change the way you shave your head forever.
You can shave your head in 90 seconds or less.
With no cuts or nicks. It's 100% waterproof.
It even works in the shower.
Introducing Remington's Balder Boss. With increased flex and 5 dual-track floating head design, get over 60% more head coverage for a faster, closer shave and skin-close results.
No nicks, no scrapes. Fit in the palm of my hand, and the results were amazing.
Shave in the shower or with any foam or gel. With Japanese-grade steel blades, plow through the thickest of hair. Anytime, anywhere. There's even a pop-up trimmer to complete your perfect groom. Now, you can try the Remington Balder Boss in your home for 30 days for just $14.99. Complete with a 5-year limited warranty and 100% satisfaction guarantee. You can also get our ear, nose, and brow trimmer free. Just pay separate processing and handling.
Give it a try. You won't be disappointed.
Order your Balder Boss.
And we are back with Frankly Speaking. Thank you so much for joining us as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. Other comments from viewers. I love to hear the Carvels of the world, meaning James Carville, stating percentages of people that support whatever they are thinking about or talking about. Obviously, they are like Biden. They know how to tell the truth. However, they never do tell the truth. And that's one of the biggest problems I have with percentages and these statistics. That's why they can be so easily manipulated. Next comment from a different viewer. Fetterman is the only Democrat that I'd like to see replace Biden. I think Fetterman saw the depth of the seat within the Democrat Party as soon as he won election. His little vacation cleared his head, and he realized they aren't the answer. I would say don't put too much. I agree. He's been saying great things about Israel, about the border. But when push comes to shove, you'll definitely get votes from him that you're not happy with. But I like how you wrapped up your comment here. I think this is really, I want everybody to listen. Never discount Andy Cuomo either. Do you think we know he wants to run for something. Remember, he had delusions of grandeur last go around in 2016, even before he was giving those daily press conferences. He was at 1% polling, and he had the delusion of grandeur that he could still be president. So, I'm with you. Never discount Andrew Cuomo throwing his name in there. Another comment from a viewer. The optics surrounding Kamala would be a moot point if Michelle was installed. By the way, my wife noted that Oprah is available now. That's a good point, too. Listen, Oprah's been thrown around for a long time. I know The Rock was for a little while. But yeah, you never know. You never know what could happen. They would have to have the name to overcome some of the deficits of getting such a late start. Joe Concha, and we can't get to all of this, but Democrats post-debate freak out, paints the left media in a corner as Biden hangs on. Yeah, they kind of knee-jerked and went with it. He's got to go. And now it looks like he's not. And then I don't want to go through every single quote from every single talking head, but these are the kind of things that could come back to bite Biden, come back to bite some of these people who perhaps won't get the interview in the future if you're in the media, or won't get that cabinet position if Biden were to win. Will the Time and other publications who have called for Biden to drop out continue this drumbeat as the campaign grinds on? Will they advocate for a candidate who wasn't even on the primary ballot? Think Gavin Newsom, Whitmer, Obama, meaning Michelle, or Hillary Clinton, to advance the narrative? If so, how will Kamala Harris, who believes the nomination should be hers if her boss goes away, react to being snubbed? What will black Democrat voters think? Will they endorse someone even farther to the left like a Cornel West? Or will they just pretend their days-long freakout never happened as Biden remains atop the ticket? The top of this terrible, horrible, no good, very bad week for Team Blue, the Supreme Court made that ruling yesterday. From a macro perspective, that means most legal experts now believe there's no way for Jack Smith to have that trial before election. And in what was a big campaign goal for the Biden campaign, which was this weaponization of the judicial system, that was quite a devastating blow. After everything that happened to his opponent in the party this week, Trump not only wins in November, but wins bigly. Because ask yourself this, does this version of Joe Biden really have a comeback in him, especially with his horrific record? Rhetorical question. Yeah, because everybody's focusing on, again, the optics or what Biden looked like, obviously that decline in mental and physical ability. But think at the end of the day, if he continues on the top of the ticket and we get to November, he still has to answer for the open, porous border, inflation, the world being on fire. Speaking of that, just quickly, because I don't want to run out of time and I got to take another break. Speaking of the open, porous border, you remember when Biden cracked down, and that was a big topic, cracked down, toughest immigration policy in years, meaning years since he took office. Trump's was much more powerful, but Biden administration has allowed in more than 100,000 migrants into the United States in June during this crackdown on asylum. More than 100,000 migrants were allowed into the U.S. in June, despite Biden's crackdown that purportedly cut off asylum claims for illegal border crossers. The stunning figure includes 30,000 illegal border crossers who were allowed in, more than one-third of all migrants caught at the U.S.-Mexico border. The document, well, we don't have to get into all the specifics. So no real surprise. We know that was just window dressing to try to run, especially before the debate, and say that he was tough on the border. But other factors played into the performance at that debate on Thursday. How am I doing on time? We got a minute. So now Democrats are circling the wagons, kind of backtracking on what they originally said. But to Joe Concha's point, that will be interesting to see how they change. Will they end up endorsing somebody else? Will they endorse Biden after saying that he should withdraw? Well, they can, because what they'll say is, hey, Trump's such a threat to democracy that, yes, we had our concerns, but he overcame it. The momentum, he overcame it. He gave that speech. You know, you can already see some of those rumblings. President Biden revealed himself as senile on Thursday night. So now Democrats are busy circling the wagon, something Republicans would never do in this situation. But this is coming from the New York Post editorial board. The reality is the race has not fundamentally changed, said former Biden flack Kate Bedingfield. In what Mediaite termed a 15-minute Biden campaign commercial, Mika Brzezinski called him a man slowed down by a cold. Does there need to be changes in managing him? Changes to his schedule? Changes even maybe to those around him? She asked. This was just days after her husband, Joe Scarborough, demanded on the same show that Biden stand aside. It's a dizzying time at MSNBC. Ex-President Barack Obama blurred bad debate nights happen. Biden family is blaming the aides who prepped him for the debate. Think about that. The president loved ones see him as a sock puppet, repeating what he's been told to say. The problem is they only programmed him wrong. But it wasn't a bad night. He wasn't over or underprepared. He was sundowning. Biden's handler and media enablers insisted for a year plus that Biden was totally and utterly fine. Sharp as a tack. That any suggested to the contrary amounted to disinformation, and they're still pitching the same tired lies. But the race has fundamentally changed. Biden, seeking to retain the most powerful political office in the world, fell apart in front of an expectant nation. It wasn't one bad night. It was the worst night in a string of increasing humiliating nights and days and mornings and afternoons and tea times. Joe Biden is no longer fit to run for dog catcher, and there's no getting past the fact that America just saw him blow up on stage. He'd taken things to his own bottomless ambition, yet his defenders can't quit asking us to stop believing our own eyes. We got to take a break, wrapping things up on this morning's edition of Frankly Speaking. Stay with us.
Experience the action, Splash in and excitement of the annual Watkins Glen Cardboard Boat Regatta from the comfort of your home this summer. Enjoy this local tradition and fun family event airing on Big Fox and My TV on the following dates and times. The Watkins Glen Cardboard Boat Regatta broadcast brought to you by these fine sponsors.
The world's pizza has been baked in ovens made of stone, but you can't put one of those on the countertop in your home. Introducing Paisano, the authentic pizza oven by Granite Stone. Now make the world's most delicious pizza with real stone right in your own home. You simply set it and let it make golden, crispy, extra cheesy stone-baked pies in under 6 minutes. The secret is the dual-controlled heat zones that quickly heat the real ceramic stone up to 800 degrees so you can stone bake just like the pros. Plus, there's no gas, wood, or charcoal needed. Paisano is electric, plug-in, and portable. You can get your Paisano pizza oven for just 4 easy payments of $39.99. And we're going to drop one payment. You get it all for just 3 easy payments of $39.99. Plus, we'll ship your entire order free.
Call 1-800-597-7208 or order online at buypaisano.com. Call now.
Wrapping things up on this morning's edition of Frankly Speaking. Thank you for joining us. Yes, I know, it went quickly. Here's a comment from a viewer. Trump should tone down his promise to ship all the illegals back, with so many that are here now, and by the time he gets in, it would probably be billions of dollars to send them all back. That's a fair point. Thank you. Joe Biden's asleep at the national security wheel, and Americans will die, writes the New York Post editorial board. Now, U.S. military bases, after that debate performance, U.S. military bases in Europe are living under terrorist threat. Sunday saw a slate of bases raised to the second highest terror level issued by the Army. The only happens when intel regards an attack is likely. Nothing like the sight of a commander-in-chief of America's forces staring vacantly into a camera and forgetting about the 16 U.S. soldiers who've died under his watch to embolden the nation's enemies. Even if the phone call comes in during the 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. window, when aides say he's functional, Biden's national security judgment stinks. And his now undeniable dementia, the rest of the day and night, is an open invitation to America's enemies. It's only a matter of time before more American lives are lost on his watch. Is it supposed to be okay because he'll forget them too? Elise Stefanik is, according to, take it with a grain of salt, the Wall Street Journal, as Trump's VP list narrows, one woman remains, and she's a long shot, but it's Elise Stefanik. Oh boy, if you ever had any question about how biased and how disgusting the media can be, this is out of the BBC, in fairness. A top BBC presenter sparked outrage after tweeting that President Joe Biden should have Donald Trump murdered. If I was Biden, I'd hurry up and have Trump murdered on the basis that he is a threat to America's security. That's David Aronovich from BBC. The hatred knows no bounds, folks. Their hatred, it must be a sad way to live, to have the hatred just overwhelm you in that way. But we are out of time. Thank you for all the comments. Thank you for all the great discussions this morning. We had a blast. At least I did. I hope you did as well. We'll be back again tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. with, I'm sure, plenty to cover, plenty to talk about. So I hope that you will join us. If I did miss something, you have any questions, comments, concerns, or criticisms, it's not too late to contact me, because that number is 24/7 on the bottom of your screen. So feel free to reach out at any time. And have a great day, everyone. And we'll be back tomorrow morning, starting at 6 a.m. for Frankly Speaking, only on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I look forward to it already.
The Fox Sports app isn't just any sports app. It's your sports app.
For the touchdown!
Yeah, yours. Your teams. Your highlights. your scores, your stories. Just choose your favorites to get more of what you want.
To the end zone!
And of course, stream your teams live. The best part is free with your pay TV subscription. Grab your Fox Sports app